Hi, I'm Bill Friend, and today I'm going to introduce you to our Click Luxury vinyl plank flooring. Not only are these floors spectacularly beautiful, they're fast and easy to install whether you're a pro or a DIYer. Planks feature a Duralox finish, which makes them incredibly resistant to heavy dogs, playful children, and general daily wear and tear. Planks also have a click locking system, which ensures the planks are easy to install, the seams are tight, and they stay gap-free for the life of the floor. And when it comes to tools, it's very basic. Carpenter square, rubber mallet, a utility knife with a new sharp blade, a good tape measure, and a saw of your choice. All right, so let's get started. I'm over in the left corner of the room, and that's where you're going to always want to start your installation. Now you notice here, I've got some shims. They're 1/4 inch thick or 6 millimeters. You can cut them up yourself out of a piece of wood, or you can also buy your shims. And they're used to keep your floor 1/4 inch away from the wall. So that space is very important to allow for a little bit of expansion and contraction so that when the floor changes temperature through the summer and winter seasons, the floor can expand and contract freely without any constriction. So we're going to get started here in the corner. We're going to be installing a double row, so 2 rows at a time. Notice that the first plank in the second row is a half-length plank. What's going to be very important is getting the end seams perfectly lined up. If you just try to line them up yourself by hand, it's very easy to have a slight misalignment. What I like to do is use this as a guide plank, so this plank is not actually going to get installed. Take your first plank of the first row, set it in, move it back and forth a little bit. We do that to make sure that the entire seam is perfectly closed and sealed, and you notice how easily that plank dropped down. The second plank, again, put it in, slide it back and forth a bit to make sure, again, that your seam is fully closed. And when you go to lock the end seam, bring it up and make sure it is just touching, no overlap, no gap. And then we're going to strike it with the hammer, the rubber mallet, to close the locking seam here on the end. You'll notice a couple sharp hits, don't hit too hard and don't hit too gently. Now, we will put the plank, the half plank in here. Make sure the end is perfectly aligned here, so you've got your 1/4 inch gap on the end. I'm going to align that, I'm going to bring that over so it's touching my shim right here. Second plank, engage the long seam again. We'll slide back and forth, bring it up, drop it down, and then with your rubber mallet, 2 or 3 hits. So we're going to do that the entire first row as a double row. Once it's finished, we're going to slide it up against the wall against our shims. All right, so I'm at the end of the double row where we need to make 2 cuts. Measure from your shim, it'll give you a much more accurate cut. You'll notice here 9 1/8, and the second plank is going to be 33 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to cut both planks and then we'll install those on our starting row. Will be complete and ready to be pushed up against the wall. As you can see, our double row is completely finished. I've got my shims in place up against the far wall, and my left shim here. I'm just going to simply push this row right up against the wall so that I'm touching my shims, and then after that we'll get started on the next rows. You'll see the sliding of the floor is actually quite easy. It's not that heavy. If it binds a little bit, just go to one end or the other and push it in a little, up against the shim there. And up against my shims here, and I'll make sure that I'm tight to that side, so I've got my expansion gap here on this side, which we do, and we're ready to go on to our next rows. I'm going to show you a little handy tip. Once in a while you're going to have a plank that doesn't want to quite lie flat on its own. The reason that is you've got a very slight micro gap. You really can't see it, but it's there. You can close that easily one of two ways. Take an offcut, so this little piece of flooring here I'm not going to reinstall, and simply insert it here into the long side and give it one sharp hit, and you notice how that plank just dropped down right away. You can also use a piece of hardwood, again making sure that it's on the profile, and strike it as well. You never strike your floor directly or you will damage the click system. Alright, so a couple more helpful hints for you. One of the things that's really important in the look of your floor is to make sure that the seams at the ends of the planks don't line up and don't create repeating patterns. So if you notice here, I've got my seams set up so that they are all staggering in different ways. None of them are lining up exactly. Now I'm going to want to avoid too many staircasings, so I'm going to trim this plank here, and at that moment I'm going to show you the score and cut method. So, make your measure, cut, and make sure you score it 2 or 3 times to get through the wear layer. That makes the floor easier to snap back. Turn it over, give it a little pressure, and cut the backing. As easy as that. You notice we're at the corner where I have a complicated cut. I need to make an L-shaped piece of flooring. The way to do that in one piece, simple and get it right the first time, is measure your length. So, measure the full length. Take off your 1/2 inch, or your 1/4 inch rather, so 26 and a half. 6 and a half, you got it. Make sure you've got the right piece. And the next thing we're going to do, we're going to measure this distance. So I need 7, which includes my gap, so 7 inches. And then this width here, I need to have about 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches. I'll measure that in 2 spots to get a nice straight line. We'll make our measurements. I'm going to go to my saw and I'm going to cut and remove this piece. And I'll come back and we'll install it together. As you can see, I'm just over halfway through the project. This has taken about 2 hours to get to where I am, about 120 square feet. So you can see it's a nice, easy half-day project. I'm going to talk to you about the locking system. That's really the foundation of what makes this floor so easy to install, so problem-free. So let's talk about that a little bit. All right, so this is a patented 2G system. There's the long side click and there's the short side click. The short side is what we call a drop lock. On the long side, what's really important is that the tongue or the male side of the plank is fully and tightly engaged on the female side of the plank. As you can see, and you can see how it hinges down nice and tightly here. The seam is fully closed. When we bring the next plank up, you get our long side fully engaged, sliding it over, and again we hinge that down. Now you can see how the locking system here has a channel. And this has the opposite side, so when it drops in, it locks it so that it cannot move and come apart. And as you drop that down, the hammer or the rubber mallet will engage and seal that closed. Now, as I discussed before, it's really important when you see your plank sitting up a little bit like this, that means that there's a very slight gap here. So again, always after each plank goes in, just Put your tapping block up there, and 4 taps. And you saw how that just dropped right down. That's a perfect installation. That's what you need to make sure every plank does. Okay, so we're on the home stretch. We're up to the 2 closets, and you'll notice here we have a post that I need to cut around. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a notched cut so that this plank here is going to have a piece cut out of it. And here's how you measure that. Slide your plank up to the post and just align the seam so that as if it was going to be closed. And then measure back your 1/4 inch to here and your 1/4 inch here for your expansion gap. And then very simply measure your distance from the post to the plank, remove a 1/4 inch, so I need to be 5.5 inches. Measure from the correct side of the plank. Here's my 5.5. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I'm going to eyeball that. As long as you're within 1/8 of an inch, close enough. Little marks here and here. We're going to cut this piece out, and that'll get us around this side of the post, and then I'll do the exact same thing on the reverse side so the post is enclosed by the planks on the 2 sides. Alright, so we're down to the very last piece of flooring. And normally when you're finishing up the opposite side of a room, there's going to be a 2 or 3 or 4 inch gap here where you have to cut your last row all the way down the middle. If your room does finish that way, keep in mind that the gap can vary in width, so you should measure along for each plank to make sure your gap is not too wide or too narrow. Now in this case, I've got about a 1/2 inch gap, which is a little wider, but my base boards will actually just cover it, so I don't need to fill this gap. The baseboard will hide it, and we're all done. Alright folks, so that's a wrap. The floor is completely installed. As you see, it went down quickly and easily. I hope your installation goes really well, and the helpful hints I've shared with you today get you through it. I wish you a fabulous success with your installation, and thanks for watching.